Okay. And we have some individuals here from Claycomb Architects. Thank you for the board members that are both online and present, Mr. Dominguez, and for the employees that are here as well. For those of you that have been here from the beginning, wow, thank you. And what I mean from the beginning is not just this time around, but last time, because some of you have been pushing since then. I know that we have an agenda. Let me know when Coach Hickman and the editor walk in, and we'll do the mic drop at that point, since they're still recording the coaches show at this point. You can see that the first thing we're going to start with this evening is an overview of the propositions that we are going for this time. And we are going for two propositions, a Proposition A, which is for maintenance, operation, and the improvements of technology. Last time around, we met in the Technology Center, and we are purposely kind of varying where the different meetings will take place from that point forward and from now. We're at one of the oldest campuses, and if you have not heard, the Butz campus is now recognized once again as an active and live campus for grades 3 through 12 in the Texas education system and the ASTED. So it was listed previously as under construction. The purpose of this campus is to not just to hold the DAEP, but also to provide accelerated instruction for students that may benefit from those type of services. Even with the Texas Tech K through 12 program that we're instituting, what the intent is to catch them up if the parents, so agree, and then get them back out to their home campus. This is not you're here forever, and it is something that it's going to be that the parents opt that this is what's best for our kiddos to get them back and get into the ability groupings that we got at the regular campuses. We chose this as the first campus since it is a fledgling campus and we're working at improving it. Mr. Omar Sanchez is the named and appointed principal for this campus. He's been working every day towards getting it prepared for what is to come. It currently houses the daycare unit and also, as I said, the DAEP in one of the buildings that's outside when it's necessary. The second proposition is for the athletic facilities and the upgrades and renovations that we want to make sure we do sooner rather than later. As good as that field still looks right now, it does have a finite number of years that it has the cushioning and is able to absorb the hits of people falling down before it needs to be replaced. We're already above a decade, and you don't want to push it much further beyond that 12-year point. So one way or another, we're going to have to do something. Our stadium requires some upgrades. We don't want to end up like certain districts where they end up with condemned stadiums. The 55-plus-year-old field house, the locker rooms, it's good to reminisce when one goes in there, but it's also better to say that we are renovating and moving forward. So the bond portion of the athletic facilities is to hopefully bring in a new field house / sports complex that could serve also as facilities for both sexes when they have to do their weight trainings, et cetera, and for the different competitions, and hopefully in the future tournaments, not just for football, but also for softball, baseball, et cetera. So all of those are things that one way or another, they're going to have to get done. And, I had a conversation with some of our board members and other people in the community. And since the beginning, when I got here, they said sometimes we get the feeling that there is animosity. Maybe for whatever reason, some of our staff look at the money spent on athletics as not wise. Some of that money is going to have to get spent regardless. We cannot not replace the turf on that football field here in the next couple of years. And if we have to replace that out of our fund balance, well, that's less money that we have available to take care of our staff and recruit and retain the top talent that we currently have and attract others. Now, if we have to spend money on making sure that our stadium doesn't get condemned, the same thing applies. And that's why these things are so important, because if we can succeed in pushing forward and taking advantage of this very unique situation, then it leaves this other money for us to focus on everything else that's going on in the district. And that's why it's so important. I hope what I'm trying to communicate is that a vote against this, if you're an employee, isn't a vote against the coaches. And I'm talking about Proposition B. It's a vote against the district. You know that I can't say vote for this. I can only give you informational, and that's what I'm doing at this point, is letting you know what it means and the ramifications. I think we can all understand that in our personal finances. If I'm able to maybe get a little bonus from this side, my normal budget, I'll be able to stretch a little further. The neat thing about this, and the reason that we keep saying that it's such a unique opportunity, is that our school district already has in the pamphlet a very competitive tax rate. What we are assessing is already, we just lowered it almost another 3 cents. That makes it, I think, 13 cents over the past 6 years or so that we've dropped the overall tax rate for the district. The maintenance and operations combined with the interest and sinking used to repay our debts. And we are very close to paying off the remaining debt that we have in the district. So if we succeed and we can move forward with a new bond, the monies that we've been using to pay these old bonds off can carry over, and thus the promise and the stand that the school board has taken of saying that the tax rate will not go up. One of the key things that we said the last time in the propositions when they come out, it states up to 84 million, and it states up to 16 million at the very start of both of those. And the reason for that is we wanted to clarify that we're only going to draw the money that the district is in a position to draw without ever raising the tax rate. And what I mean by that is, if something were to happen and all of a sudden the property values plummet, we don't have to pull the money. We are somewhere in the neighborhood of about just under 3 million, Ms. Maria, that we have sitting in the INS account right now in the event of to cover a shortfall. Is that accurate? 2 million. So that money is there to make up some of the difference. If we come up a bit short, that's there to help us repay on an annual basis. The other thing that I wanted to hit up, if you never heard it before, is the state the last time had the $25,000 homestead exemption. That means that the $25,000 off the value of your house, you don't get taxed for it. And that was raised to $40,000 for this year. All right, mic drop, mic drop. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. We're just getting started, still doing the introduction. So that 40,000 now replaces the 25, and it's coming off of the value of a home. But even more special than that, at Fort Stockton ISD, there's still a local optional homestead exemption. That means that locally, the district offers this discount, 20% of your homestead, and it's not capped. 20% of your homestead comes off the value. So that means you got a $500,000 house, 100,000 of that is forgiven right off the bat, and then 40,000 comes off of that. So you're only paying taxes on $360,000 as opposed to the entire 500, or if you were in, say, Austin, where you would be paying for 460,000, and you'd be at a tax rate that's much higher than where we're at. So it is a blessed scenario to be in, and it's something that we have to work hard to take advantage of. We were so close the last time. How can we not push as hard as we can to try to make our community, our school district better? That local optional homestead exemption is something that most districts in the state have done away with. I think the last time we established there are 46. Is that the number that we said, Mr. Rhodes? There are 46 or so school districts left in the state that still have that local optional homestead exemption. So here's what it means. If you live in a $100,000 house, you're only paying taxes on $40,000. If you live in a $50,000 house, you're not paying taxes at all for the district. And if you live in an apartment you're renting, you're not paying taxes. It's the person who owns that building that's paying taxes. And I'll reiterate what I said the last time. The kids that'll benefit the most are the ones that are living in that $50,000 house. So how can those individuals that are not going to have to pay not say this is a chance for me to step up and make sure that our kids receive the best? That's what we love the most. That's what we've been so focused on, with setting the safety and security and the many things that The gentleman even walked through today and saw some of the flaws. And I'm going to tell you, we got a great maintenance director, Mr. Rivera. From the time that I got here, he had just been here about a year, and I gave him one of my philosophies that I use. And you know, it's called the 100-yard test. And when I drove around with some of the school board members when I first got here, and when Mr. trained them, you know, I'm like, wow, what's going on here? You know, why are there so many things that have been neglected? And when I drove around with Mr. Rivera shortly afterwards, I said, let me tell you about the 100-yard test. We start with 100 yards. Anything that we see from 100 yards that is an eyesore or that is an issue, we got to address first, you know, because our people need to see. And if you drive around, you'll see the care in the paint that's been thrown around, our curbs, you know, the metal, everything, the playgrounds. You know, we're doing what we can to make it more appealing. And then step number 2 is we need to take that down to the 10-foot. That means if I'm driving right next to it, if I'm walking, what happens with that 10 feet? You know, am I looking at it? I have to focus on making it to where those eyesores are gone. And then the last stage, and sometimes this takes years, is that I'm right here 1 foot away. And he took that to heart, and our maintenance has been working their tails off to try not just to keep up with the, you know, day-to-day tasks. We got to mow the grass and we got to fix the things that break, but to beautify our district. And they're going to need help. We need help. And we have it. For those of you that are thorough and want to get, you know, down and deep, a 300-page detailed breakdown of where our facilities are at that was conducted by our prior architects. It's available online. There's an executive summary that's about 30 pages. If you want to take the time to go through that and not have to go through the 300 pages. And there's an interactive guide, a chart that is available online as well. You know, all of those things are there. How deep do you want to dig? But tonight when we finish, and I'm about to turn it over to Mr. Rhodes to help facilitate, Mr. Sanchez is going to tell us a little bit about this campus and the challenges they're facing. And he's going to kind of lead us in a little tour of the facilities. You know, it's great to walk into a place like this and see something that was all the way back from '74 on the wall, because it's historical. The other day I was inside of Comanche, and there's something similar to this. Cowboys and Indians on the wall and holes in the roof, and a place that we need to tear down and do something to hopefully make it more appealing and something that can be usable for the community. So when he gets the chance, I hope you decide to not just at that point leave, but follow us around, follow him around so he can show you where we're at and where we hope to be. At this point, again, thank you all for coming. Mr. Rhodes, if you would, and Mr. Francis, if you all are going to present together, or is it just you for now, sir? Come on. Thank you.
So first of all, thank you once again. What a privilege to be back with the district and to tour your facilities. With me is Francis Nordea, who is our lead architect on the project, and Robert Kiefer, who is will be some of our recommendations and design work. I spent the day today touring your buildings, and you know, for each of us who are in this room, we look at Fort Stockton and the buildings through our lens of, I went to this school, or I've been in this campus, I've been employed here for a number of years. But you tend to remember the facilities through an emotional lens, or through the lens of, I work in this building, and pretty much that is your domain or your context. So today, as when I was talking with Dr. Zamora, we wanted to come and tour the buildings and kind of get a quick lens of what does safety and security look like. And ultimately, the goal of this process is to create awareness for your community. So the people that are here the next time, which is going to be Tuesday, September the 20th, it'll be at Apache. We need you to bring somebody else with you. Okay? Because many of you work for the district. Like, even though you work for the district, your lens is based on the campuses that you have worked in or the schools that you attended. So we want to create awareness, and that's one arm of this campaign is how do we inform the public? How do we create awareness for them of what the condition of our campuses are? You know, it's like when I went through this building today with Omar, you know, he was telling me that this building, the oldest part is like 1938.
That's what the plaque has on there.
You know, and many of your buildings from here, this portion was updated, renovated in 72. When I went into Alamo, we were trying to figure out exactly, it's about 30 years old. And it looks, you know, from the exterior of the building, you look at that building and your lens is, man, it looks nice, but it's one of the newer buildings. Apache has a newer portion at the back. So, and I shared with some of y'all, my architects of the high school, my first job interview straight out of college was in that building in 81. And you've got some new additions, courtyards, swimming complex. But when you look at the buildings, what I was looking at today is safety and security. We have a lot of chain link fences. We have a lot of doors that, and how do we secure it? How can we make sure that our facilities academically, safety and security, we know who's in our building. We know when a door is ajar. We have camera systems. We're not trying to create a prison, but we're trying to create something that we can monitor and ensure that we know what is occurring within our buildings. So as you, over the next several weeks, our goal will be, we want you to walk through the buildings with the lens of have your eyes open from a safety and security perspective. How do we protect our teachers, our children? You know, and the buildings were not built with that lens. We grew up in a different time. Many of you can remember when kids drove to school with their shotgun or their 22 or whatever gun, 30-06, in the gun rack in their pickup. You know, we never had issues, but our world is significantly different. So how do we create awareness? How do we put in place systems to protect everybody? And there are systems today. We cannot put a price tag on a child or a person's life. So we're either proactively trying to address solutions for the future. This is not about money. This is about kids. This is about education. People who want to talk about money, you can't convince them that it's not about money. Okay? Or it is about money. So what our goal will be is to create awareness of what are the proposed projects. You have two propositions. Proposition A, which is an acronym. Proposition, it will touch every campus. Okay? The money that's in there is designed so that whether it's all of the safety, security, or the curriculum update, Windows facilities, you know, AC units. I have a 13-year-old house, and one of my AC units went out. And I called the guy, and he said, Mr. Rhodes, we need to replace your fridge. I'm like, what? Well, you can't, it's an R22, I guess R20, is it R22 or 24? R22. So you can't get the refrigerator. So, you know, and that's just, and I have two air conditioners, so thinking it's only one went out, but he said, you're going to replace something. So your air conditioner units, your AC units, they're outdated. I mean, your buildings go back to the 60s, 50s, 70s. This is still 30 years old. You know, I go into communities and I go, how do you like our new gym? It was built 35 years ago. It's still it's the newest gym. So what we're going to try to do is try to walk you through a process. I will just tell you my quick observations. You know, from a safety and security audit, doors that will actually lock or that you can control and electronically, remotely lock down. the ability to view every entrance and access point throughout. Some of you know, identify, you can see a blur, maybe it's a shadow or a ghost, I don't know, but you need upgraded system. You have many of your kids who use vestibule, at Charles Elementary School. Once you are in to the building, you push the button, they have to buzz you in. But once you're in. You can go anywhere throughout that building. So we have to create a layer of protection so that you don't just walk in the building and say, okay, I'm here, I'm gonna go wherever I want to go. Because you don't know what a person has on or doesn't. So key fobs, badges, keys, there are multiple keys throughout the district, and Dr. Zamora has talked about that previously. So, you know, those are things that we'll talk about that we hope that. So as you go to the building, go with your eyes open, go with your nose, smell it. What is that smell? Those of you who teach in old buildings, you are accustomed, you don't even notice the smell. People who walk into your building, we walk in buildings across the state of Texas, and immediately you smell the mold, the mess. And the people that are there don't smell it. And they become so climatized, conditioned, that they don't realize that it's healthy or not healthy. If your allergies kick in frequently, there are people in this room who probably experience those every time they re-enter their classroom. So we'll be looking at those kinds of things. So walk with your eyes open, your nose smelling, and we want you to take notes of things that you see, because the district wants your feedback. They call this bond election Proposition A academics. The legislature requires that if it's athletic in nature, and they have like 5 different categories of what has to be in the second proposition. So the athletic issues on the field house, the renovation of the old field house actually could be out of the current, the Proposition A, but you have Title IX, you have ADA requirements. And what takes place in buildings that were built, this building, the American Disabilities Act was, I mean, it was actually passed a long time ago, but it was not enforced at all in construction and design. So our buildings are not accessible for students who have disabilities. Once you start renovating buildings, now you have to bring things in, and you have to address accessibility. And that is whether it's ADA, whether it's Title IX, which Coach talked about previously. You know, you have inadequate facilities for your kids, male and female. You're just one complaint away from somebody in your pocket and forcing you to spend money. So we always talk about, what do you want your community, your schools to look like? You get to decide, not us. I pay taxes in my school district, and they passed an $800 million bond last year. And it's one that I live in the northwest side of Fort Worth, and it's a fast growth district. And our tax rate did not go up at all. Not free. But that's exactly what your district is doing. My tax rate did not go up. My appraisal has gone up in the last 14 years. The district has no control of that. You're like, well, the district, my house has gone up by $300,000 in 13 years. And you're like, well, the district gets all this extra money. Well, they don't. The state has about a $24 billion surplus, thank you, of funds because of increased appraisal value. The district has a budget that is comprised of maintenance and operation, interest and sinking. We will have a presentation on that. I think that's the next meeting will be where we'll kind of give you a brief financial overview. It's very complicated, but in a nutshell, If I told you I want you to make a budget for this year for yourself, and then in 14 months from today, I'm going to tell you how much money you really get. And you get to reconcile. You either get more or less. And oftentimes it's less. That's the way the state funding formula operates. You're a chapter, what was 41, now called 49 school district, which means you're subject to Robin Hood. So you build schools and classrooms in other districts across the state by the money you send back to the state of Texas, and they allocate. The great thing about Robin Hood or bonds is when you go call a bond, all the money that's generated from the interest and sinking bond debt stays in Fort Stockton. It's not subject to recapture. So that's a great thing. So I'll try not to get into that part about tax rate, but going back to why I started down that path was the district I live in, my tax rate did not go up at all. Your school district is committed to keeping their interest and sinking rate at the rate that it's at. If you look on the back of this, this is a draft flyer that we'll be going over briefly to talk about how you get the information out. As you go through there, if you see something we need to clarify or need to change up, please note it down. I know on the back part right there, it says FSISD. I left the S out, so that's already been denoted. So, but if you see anything that needs changes or suggestions, please, because we want people to get this and read it. And the problem is the more verbiage you have in it, the less likely they're going to read it. Our goal is for them to see this and go, okay, so this is about the bond. What do I need to walk away, take away from it? But the reason why I wanted to point your attention out is the adopted tax rate for the district right here on the bottom of the blue is total tax rate of $1.10. Maintenance and operation is 85 cents, and the interest and sinking is 24.54. So the commitment on the district is that they are not going to change the interest, the INS debt. They will not go above 24 cents. And they will be able to issue bonds over the next 5 to 10 years to address all of the things that are part of Proposition A and B without raising the tax rate. Is that accurate, Dr. Zamora?
The promise is a 110 combined,
Yeah.
and when you said that we won't change it, that means we won't raise it. We
Correct.
may lower it.
Correct. So that's important for people to know. Okay. So we'll come back to that shortly, but so our goal tonight is we want you to start thinking about over the next couple of meetings, our goal as a committee, this group here, this is not the board's bond. It's not the superintendent's bond. This is your bond. Okay? You are the ones who will carry the message of why did the district call for a bond election? Okay. What do the proposed projects look like? How will they benefit the schools, the campuses, and the children? Okay. You need to be the ones that are communicating that. If you hear questions, any of you have questions, we want you to ask questions, but if you have questions, guess what? So do other people, right? So my job is to facilitate this process. I work with committees all over the state, and we want to help you through this process of how did the bond get called. This has been an ongoing process for the last year. You had a failed bond in May, 85 bond, it fell by 85 votes. Sorry, 9 votes. 9 votes. You had, was it 5 or 6? So there were 6 ballots that came in that were called provisional ballots. You originally had lost by 3, as I recall. And when the 6 ballots came in, they were all no's. So you basically fell by 8 or 9 votes. You just need to change 3 people's minds, 4 people's minds, before you get 8 other people to go vote. And what we typically find across the state is you have about 8 to 10% voter turnout in any given election. If we went through the voting rolls, which we can, and look and see who voted, I would dare say you had less than 20 to 30% of your teachers, your parents go vote. So if your parents are not voting, and that means we either are not informing them well enough, we're not engaging them, or they're not aware of what this is about. So our ultimate goal is we want to engage people to go vote, because if you get to vote, they get to vote, and it doesn't matter. You each get 1 vote. So it's about, you need 9 more votes. So how do we get people to go vote? And we'll talk about that later on. But the first part is we inform them. Okay, so we want to inform them, and then we will also talk about other tools. We have a web page that we are setting up. It's almost, I think it's ready to go, but we want the district to review it. That we will link to your web page that will answer questions that people may have about the bond election. Any questions that they have, they can submit them, and there will be a scrolling Q&A. There will also be a scrolling did you know. Throughout the next 2 months, we will be distributing information to parents, to voters, to over 65 voters. And one of the big things that we want you to emphasize, if you know people that are 65, is your taxes are frozen on your homestead. Have you heard that? Do you believe it? Anybody not? So the law is that when you turn 65, you have your homestead exemption, which Dr. Zamora talked about. The May election raised it from 25 to 40,000. So if your home is valued at 200,000, instead of being taxed at 175, you get another 15 off. You're taxed at 160. What's unique about Fort Stockton is there are very few school districts in the state that still offer the 20% off. So 20% of your value is already knocked off. And then you do the 40,000. So if you're 65 or older, or you're handicapped, disabled, then you can have your taxes frozen at $1 amount. So I turned 65 this year, so I'm looking forward to that. So what that means is the school district, my school taxes will be frozen at, let's say, $8,500. It's something like that. So if my house goes up $400,000 in value, I still only pay this amount. That's it can go down, but it can never go above this level unless I add square footage to my house, unless I build a pool, something like that. If I gold plate every faucet in my house, doesn't matter. I'm still right here, not going to do that. Okay. So, and if somebody moves to Fort Stockton who is 65 and have their homestead taxes frozen in Marfa or wherever in the state of Texas, they can transfer that to here. It's a percentage. It's called portability. So if you have anybody that's 65 and says my taxes are going to go up, say, help them understand on your homestead they will not go up. Okay. And if they have a question, please, we want them to call the district, and we want them to call the Pecos County Appraisal District. They can help them. We can help them complete the application so that their taxes are frozen. So that's an information piece that we want to be communicated. But we're going to look at having what's called a push card. It's like a half-page flyer. You push it into their tape. Are you worried about the bond election? It's called push card because you push it on. And so we'll have different kinds of reminders. The district will send out email, text blasts to parents, to staff, to remind them when does early voting begin, which will be October the 24th, running through November the 4th. It's probably on the other. I'm just having to rely on vendor here. So those are some of the things that we'll do later on. This group will transition into encouraging people, calling people, please go vote for. Okay, so that's down the road. That's not right now. Okay, questions or comments that you have right now? We're committed to each meeting being right at an hour and 15 minutes. Okay, that's yes, ma'am.
Okay. On purpose of proposition, we have HVAC, repair, plumbing, electrical, flooring.
Yes.
And then down here, the career and technical education. Does that mean that you're gonna fix the, put hot water heater and fix up the ag department?
That's part of it, yes, ma'am. So part of the career and technology, we try not to put everything in here. There's a lot of things. Dr. Zamora talked about the report that was done by the police architect. It's one of the links in your homepage. If you haven't looked at it, go do so. But what has been identified is all the cosmetology, the auto tech, ag program, the barn, the water heater, all of the things that we talked about at the previous meeting. The district has this compiled list of projects to address. So that's part of this, yes.
Does that also include putting cameras out there?
I cannot answer that.
Yes.
Yes. So I will tell you, as part of the district's safety and security plan, this master plan of safety and security is to touch on every campus, every facility, bus barn, everything to ensure safety of kids and property and staff. Great question. What other questions? So let's look real quickly at the draft flyer. So this is a draft of information that we believe people need to be aware of. Okay, so if you have stylistic issues or suggestions, please see me afterwards. See Dr. Zamora. This is a beginning draft document that I sent him at the beginning of the week. It outlines early voting period, district-wide upgrades, no tax rate increase, election day. Proposition A. There are more things I wanted to list in there. I mean, it's like, you realize electrical, plumbing, district-wide. When you look through everything that was identified, I mean, there's this massive list of infrastructure, expenditures, and things that need to be done just to bring the buildings up to code so that they're not dangerous, so you're not getting electrocuted. These buildings were not built for technology. They just weren't. You know, so how do we make them safe? Hallways. You have hallways that are too small for TPA code. Well, what do you do? Well, you can't really do much about that. But so there's things we're looking at. You know, in some ways, it's there's a long list. So prioritize, they will get done. But if you see things that need to be done that you don't feel like have been identified, please jot them down, send an email to you. Okay. Oh, send it to him. So this talks about the propositions on the back, talks about what M&O and INS can be spent for. here is the district's tax rate table. We just want you to see what has happened to the tax rate over the last 5 to 7 years. And here are all of the current adopted tax rates for 22, 23, just so that you know what other people, what their tax rates are. I'm working in Marfa right now, and their INS is going to go up probably 34 cents because they're building a whole new campus. So that'll kind of skew that.
One of the things that I noticed right away is it doesn't talk about any of the new construction. If you remember though, the full page ads that we had in the Pioneer and that were on our website, for those of you that were keeping track back then, we had it broken down into what the percentages were that and where they were being spent, right? And it's real simple this time. 84% of it is for academics and the purposes serving academics and the logistics involved with that, right? So transportation, security, technology, infrastructure, all fall into Proposition A. The complete revamp of our career technology and education, which involves the FFA, agricultural science. And we already have certain things moving in that direction. I think the trailer is fixing to get ordered, you know, and a bunch of the other things that have already been purchased for the others. If successful, some of that money can be reimbursed back to the district from this proposition. But I think it's pretty clear where our priorities are. If 84% of the money is being spent on academic facilities and only 16% is being spent to completely finish and wrap up what we have to do on the athletic side, that's pretty good. I think that's a fair and balanced percentage, you know, to do what we have to do. And, you know, one of my board members called me the other day because he went to a meeting in Monahans and he said, Jesus, what do they have going up over there? You know, it was at their little convention slash rec center. And he's like, I thought they were building a high school behind, and come to find out it's an elementary intermediate. We're not trying to do that, but we are talking about expanding our intermediate so that it can easily accommodate the kids that we need and the teachers in there. So we talk about that PE facility right there with a new wing of classrooms leading into it. And one of the things that was most stunning to me, and at the same time, in a good and a bad way, stunning, was the Technology Special Ed Center, because I passed through there and I said, wow, this was a neat building. And it is a neat building. You drive through there, look at the architecture, look at the dome on that gym, and it's really neat. And it's sullied by the stone that no one seems to know was put up on half of the windows. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, because he's right, if you grow up in a place and you drive through there all the time, it just starts to blend together and you don't realize what it is because you're just used to it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, when you drive out, take a look down the backside of Butz right here and on the side and see what happened to some of these windows, because it's just been mortared over. And it's a piece of metal that they put there, and they decided we're not going to replace the windows. We're just going to do this. And while that may have served a purpose back then, I don't know what it was. It definitely is not appealing. And I don't know that we want for our people to drive around and be proud of where their kids are going to school. If you haven't noticed that, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but one of our people, her first name starts with an M and it ends with a Ria. Ms. Maria, she didn't know that it was all boarded up like that over at the Technology Center, because she'd just grown so accustomed to it. And I had to show her a picture, and she said, who would do that? And I asked her who would, and she said it was before my time, and she's been in the district 30 years, ma'am. So that's how long ago, that's how long it's been there. Those are things that we would hope to address. Sorry to take that from you, Mike, but I mean, we're going to work hard at providing something great in the campus materials.
And one of the items that's part of that plan is to demo Comanche. You know, after the meeting 2 meetings ago, we had a board meeting last week, and then the previous meeting we had as a group, I wanted to drive by and look at it, and I showed my wife it last week, and I'm like, wow. Yeah, it's right in the heart of town. And I don't know how long it's been boarded up, but there were a lot of comments and high-ranking priorities that you as a group had listed. It's listed in the plan that the district has. And so you also want to remember the law, the legislature, they've tried to make it more difficult to pass bond elections over the last 3 years. So the reason we have 2 propositions is because of what was called Senate Bill 30. It came out and required the changes 2 years ago. Also, part of that legislation is when you have your election order written, you're required by law to say this is a tax increase, even though your tax rate is not going up. School districts have no control over appraisal districts and appraised values. The appraisal district sets the value of your property. Excess, the district gets to keep 3% of what they had last year. That doesn't cover fuel increases. It doesn't cover salary increases. But they get to keep 3%, and the state now has, I mean, literally this biennium, they have $24 billion that they've collected over appraised properties throughout the state of Texas. So we want you to be aware of the facts. Just know that that will be on the election language again. Okay. Questions or comments before we switch over to Omar, and then we'll be almost at our time.
You know what, just because of the way we're gonna spread out, I'm just gonna close it. We'll end with you doing it. And we'll keep it real simple. What he said is the truth. If you got a great idea, if you got something that you think is gonna help us push this thing over the top, come on, you know, shoot us an email. The board, you run into them, give them the ideas. You know, together we rise. And thank you all for coming out this evening. Please help yourself to a snack of water as we go on this tour. This is a great place. Let's show everybody just how great it is. Thank you, Mr. Omar.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here. I don't know how many are going to join the tour, and it's kind of a big group, so kind of let me give you the layout, because some of you may be in the back, and I may be just talking to the people that are closest to me in the front. But of course, you're sitting in the cafeteria. The main building itself is cafeteria. We've got right in this little hall to the right, we are the west side. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 classrooms or 4 rooms. One is the what is it? Testing bilingual ESL. Not the migrant, but the GT, and that's Miss Urias's kind of little nook area, and that she's got her office and her little meeting room. We have a storage room kind of in the middle, and then we have a meeting room first off when you go on to the right. On the left side, we do have our multimedia room. That's where we make posters for the district, copies. A lot of that stuff that's on that wall kind of comes from there. A lot of the flyers that go home are made by Ms. Rodriguez. She's our campus secretary, and she's Ms. Urias's secretary as well for her different programs that she manages and works with. Then next to it, we have another kind of multimedia room. That's where we used to, or I don't know, a lot of people don't use them anymore. The die cuts, you guys remember the die cuts? You put a little stamp, put a piece of paper, and press down, and it would cut out the imprint of whatever shape. We have a room full of die cuts in there for different grade levels, different campuses that have been purchased throughout the years. It's funny because the technology warehouse over there at Intermediate used to be the multimedia room, and then they got, I guess, moved over here, switched places because technology was outgrowing, and so they decided to make the warehouse. The multimedia room became the warehouse, and technology, the back end of technology where the training room is in the back, that used to be the theater. They had plays and all kinds of stuff going on back there. So now that's gone. It's kind of like what Dr. Shimoda said, you know, we've had to make improvements to our buildings, not because we couldn't grow, but we had to kind of make what's there work. And I think that's kind of what's happened to this building is we've had to make it work through the years by adding things here and upgrading and you know, throwing some paint here and making it look nice. And further down, we do have a migrant office. Across from that, we have a little lounge area for the staff that does work here, that is here. We also have the old gym and the old theater. So I'll open that up so you guys kind of peek in there, take a look. It's small, but that's where our daycare kids have their gym time and, you know, kind of like their fun time. And then, of course, we're going to go into the daycare. And there's several rooms. We have rooms for the preschoolers, the toddlers, the infants, and each one has their own room. And I don't know if the doors are open. I'd asked them to leave the door open so you guys kind of peek in there. And then we'll transition out. And that's the main part of the building. Out on the south side, we have rooms 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and they are connected to this building, but there's not a door. You have to actually go outside to get into those rooms. Now, there was some maintenance work done today on the doors. They were painting the doors since the guys couldn't go out there and cut grass and do stuff because of the rain. So they came out and they did a lot of painting. So be careful, those doors are still a little tacky. You might get paint on yourself if you touch the door, so be careful with that. So we'll go in through, I'll open one of the doors and we'll just kind of go through the room. And that's where our Texas Tech initiative, our students that we're looking at putting in through the Texas Tech program, that's where they're going to be housed. That's going to be their classrooms. That's going to be, that used to be kind of our DAP, so we've relocated them to a different part of the building. And so we're dedicating that whole wing to those Texas Tech kids that we're going to be doing and working with here in the future. And then, so that's our main building right there. Okay. In the middle, you have two, I guess I shouldn't say the middle, but out there you have two other buildings. You have rooms 18 and 19, and currently those are being used as storage. For a lot of it is just kind of different things for the district. Chairs and boxes of different kinds of stuff. So those are there. And then we have rooms 20 and 21. And room 20 used to be the curriculum training classroom, but with the changes in the district, we've kind of turned it into the DAP classroom now. So that's where our DAP students are going to be housed. And then in addition to that, we do have our PAIMS director in there as well. That in a nutshell are the classrooms. Feel free to go in there, ask questions if you have any. Like they said, we've done a lot of repurposing and kind of moving things around. And Dr. Samora's right. Mr. Rivera's been great about doing a lot of renovations and getting his guys to come and, you know, painting and cutting grass and building fences and gates and kind of getting things ready for our students that are out here.
Before we go in that direction, September 20th, tentative date for the next meeting, and that meeting will take place at the Apache campus. We will put it out, you know, same way we did agenda and via Facebook, email it to everybody and push it out. I hope that y'all can join us on that day as well. Lead the way, Mr.
Right.
Sanchez.
So if you guys want to come this way.